Okay, so we have talked about wet versus dry bath bomb, texture for the actual consistency of the bath bomb batch. We have talked about how you can spot whether it's too wet or too dry, what you can do to fix it in the, mixing stage before we start molding. And now it's time to start walking. Let's start adding extra stuff and talk about the stuff that you can add to make your bath bombs, super awesome. So that is what we are going to be starting to do today. I will tell you more about it in just a minute, but before I do, hello, I am Mrs. Soap and Clay. Let's make stuff. How's it going, Sudsers? Welcome back to the channel. You are at Soap and Clay, where we make all the soapy things, and you are here for week 26 of year 3 and video number 5 in the Back to Basics Bath Bomb playlist. And today, as I said, we're going to start playing around with more ingredients. Now, the recipe that I've been giving you is a very standard 2 parts baking soda, 1 part citric acid, and we really haven't deviated from that. For the liquids, we have put in, for this ratio, 1 tablespoon of water, 1 tablespoon of oil, and 1 tablespoon of scent. In one of the recipes, we also did 1 tablespoon of polysorbate 80, which you will see the results of and we will talk more about within the upcoming videos within this playlist as far as how to make your bombs even more awesome. But remember, at the end of the day for a recipe, all you need is baking soda, citric acid, and enough moisture, water, to actually make that all stick together in whatever shape it is that you're going for. But let's say the first thing that you're after is a prolonged fizz. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. Ways to get a longer fizz, or a more impactful fizz, or even diminish the fizz within a bath bomb recipe. And we're going to be making some more embeds with all of it, but we will be using the embeds that we made in video number 2 for this, so it's a different type of way to get a color surprise bomb, so you'll get to see that too. So many things going on. Let's get to the video and we can see all of those things. Okay, so for today we are going to be doing the color embeds in a different way. And so remember, in video 2 I made all of these guys with quite a lot of water in the recipe. So again, it's about 0.66, so 2/3 of a cup of baking soda. And we put probably a full tablespoon of water with the FD&C into that. So yeah, it's a very, very wet batch, really. Sorry, I've been trying to not say moist throughout the entire thing, but moist is definitely the word. But anyway, so all of these embeds were made with a very wet bath bomb batch, and as you can see, they all look amazing. There's none problems whatsoever. They're very firm. They are very, very potent in the coloring, and so that's good considering I'm using embeds that are in their dried form. I want the entirety of the bath bomb itself to be white with a hidden surprise, color. So putting more of the FD&C colorants into it, the dyes into it, is going to be a good idea to achieve that end goal. Now in this, I am putting in 1 tablespoon of the scent, 1 tablespoon of a lightweight oil, in this case it's sunflower, and 1 tablespoon of the water. But I am also including into this 1/2 cup of arrowroot powder. Now the reason that I am going to include the arrowroot powder into this is because I want 2 things to occur. 1, I want to prolong the fizz of the bath bomb, and putting arrowroot powder or kaolin clay or cornstarch will prolong that fizz, so it will make the bath bomb experience last longer, which means it's going to fizz out longer. Now the reason for this is because there is a dry ingredient within the mixture itself that is hindering the baking soda and the citric acid's ability to get to each other to create, you know, the off-gassing. So the fizzy liftoff. And so for those reasons, it's really good because, again, it prolongs that fizz because it takes longer for the fizz to, you know, occur. But with all of this, it also has the added benefit of providing structure and bath bomb hardening, which is going to be important for your high humidity areas. I know there are so many recipes online about the right stuff to work with in high humidity areas, as far as putting in like a cocoa butter or something like that. I say nay. I say the water is still going to be a requirement. Like that's definitely a necessary thing because you do need a bit, again, of that fizzy liftoff with the baking soda and the citric acid within the bath bomb itself to create your crust, essentially, for structure. But you want it to be protected from the elements and dry out as quickly as possible in a high humidity environment, so it's not taking on a whole lot of moisture from the air. So putting in an ingredient like an arrowroot or a cornstarch or a kaolin clay or even extra baking soda will help that process, and so you're going to get a drier bomb faster. So this would be one of the biggest reasons why an arrowroot powder would be a really good idea. You can, of course, add more baking soda to a batch of bath bombs in order to get, you know, the same effect, but as a result, what you're going to end up with is a more like diminutive fizz. So it's going to be more delicate. And if you want, you know, a nice big fizz that's impressive and, you know, fun for your end user, probably adding more baking soda is not going to be the key. But adding the arrowroot powder, it's not going to impede the actual force of a fizz, but it is going to extend the fizz time, if that makes sense. And so arrowroot, good for that, for sure. Kaolin clay and cornstarch and arrowroot, all they have skin loving benefits. They are skin softeners. They also do help adjust the pH of the skin as well as the pH of the water, which is, you know, cool and important when you are, you know, in a bathtub using bath bombs or whatever, because while the only things that are required are baking soda and citric acid, we obviously as makers want to have a nice skin loving experience too. So it's not just baking soda and citric acid, you know what I mean? So any of those ingredients totally work out. Cornstarch is by far the easiest and cheapest method in order to get the bath bombs, you know, made and cost effective for you. So that's a good call. But kaolin clay and arrowroot powder, they are both also reasonably inexpensive. So good ideas for that. Now, to extend the fizz in other ways or to make the fizz more, you know, like extreme, that's when you would start messing with the adjustments of your baking soda and your citric acid ratios. And so if the typical ratio is 2 parts baking soda to 1 part citric acid, if you wanted a bigger fizz, you could put in 2 parts baking soda to 1.5 parts citric acid, or a 1-to-1 ratio as well. Those are going to fizz out very quickly. And so it's usually a good idea to use that for your embeds for the internal core of your bath bomb, because that also does have the added benefit of helping it flow. If you have a really big fizz going on in the middle of the bath bomb, but a slower fizz on the outside, because of the different adjustments in the whatever, it does help them, the bath bombs themselves float, which is very cool. But that's also a patent that Lush has done. You know what I mean? Like that's a patent that they have for that process of making a bath bomb with the core that has a different baking soda to citric acid ratio composition. So do be very, very careful in making things like that. But the really the ratios are going to be what's going to help you have a longer lasting fizz experience or a shorter fizz experience, as well as, again, as I said, including things like arrowroot or cornstarch or kaolin clay. Now, with these bath bombs here, again, the added benefit of the arrowroot is going to be because it's going to firm it up faster. Gorgeous bath bomb there. As you can see, I am kind of messing with the packing with this one a little bit because I am putting those embeds in. Normally what I do with each side of the bath bomb mold is that I just put a whole bunch of bath bomb powder in loosely until it has a nice mound on top. Then I gently press that in so it is not fully compact, not super hard on each side, you know? Just press it in gently with the palm of my hand so it's basically even with the top of the, you know, the half. scraping off the excess if you need to, and then putting in another mound on one side to compress everything, to give it all something to further compress. But because I'm putting in these embeds in the middle, I'm basically forming the bath bomb powder around the edges of the bath bomb mold itself to give it a concave place. And I don't want to overpack the embeds in there too terribly much. Like, I don't want to put too many in because the bath bomb powder needs to go in and around them too. Otherwise, we run the risk of these things separating as they dry out. So this is kind of a more advanced technique. This is more, walking, getting ready to run with bath bombs if you're using the solid embeds inside. That's true of using the toys or the capsules that you can put toys and stuff inside. You really do have to have a working knowledge of how your bath bomb batch works before you start putting in, stuff like that. But this is doable. It's completely workable once you get a handle on how moist is moist enough for your bath bomb recipes. And as you can see here, I am having a little bit of a problem of getting these out of the mold in this particular bath bomb. I noticed that it was starting to attach to the mold and not wants to come off. And so what I am going to do is just go ahead and put the mold back on and give it some more bangy bangs. But also, if you notice that you're having problems with your bath bombs sticking to the mold, you can separate the two into two halves and make sure that they come out on their own on each side, right? Then what I like to do is I scrape a bit of each side out to create like a concave, and then just try it again. Put another mound in the middle and try to mold it again. Now, this is something that I personally am going to run into. I'm going to run into problems like this personally in the making of bath bombs in my humidity, because my humidity right now in the soap shop is sitting at around 45 to 50%. So with that inclusion of the arrowroot, I'm actually dealing with a drier bath bomb powder than I normally do. And when you have a drier bath bomb powder, it's going to start sticking to your molds. So it does require a little bit more love. Completely fine. It totally works out. And it's not a recipe that's going to be dry and get fragile at the end. And I know that because it has the water in it. But it is going to be a little bit drier than I would normally want. Also, the continuing of the packing in there to make sure that I have like a concave place to put all of my embeds, that does lend to the whole sticking thing to the sides of the mold. You just have to be cognizant of that when you're working with your bath bombs. Don't be afraid of your bath bomb powder when it's all said and done. The worst thing that happens, right, is that the bath bomb doesn't work and it all goes back into the container and you have to remold. You know what I mean? In reality, yeah, just again, don't be afraid of your bath bomb powder. You can play with it, mess with it, continue to try to mold, figure out the right consistency to go within your actual molds themselves. This is not an exact science. Bath bombs are not, the only scientific thing is the chemical reaction that occurs between bath bomb citric acid and water to create the fizz. But as we remember from our, presentations in school when we were doing vinegar and baking soda to create our volcanoes and all the things, there are different ways to play with all of that to ensure that you're getting a big fizz or a small fizz or a longer fizz or all of the things within the recipe itself. But you have a reasonably long working time with this to kind of play with the ratios in each mold. Now, what I am giving you with all of this is the way that I have found to be the best as far as molding the bath bombs over the years. And that's just me. That's my ability to make the bath bombs and how I've found that it's the easiest way to teach it within all the classes. It's the easiest way for me to make it for the apprentices to make the bombs. But you might have a better way. You might actually find that compressing the bath bombs each time you put a little bit of powder into each side of the mold works better for you. That's not been my experience. In my experience, you can overpack a bath bomb. And so this tends to work out better for me, allowing enough airspace between each side of the bath bomb essentially to have that final compression when you put the mound in the middle and then squeeze everything together seems to be the sweet spot. I don't have problems with bath bombs being fragile or crumbling or cracking apart anymore since I started using this method. So I do recommend trying it. Okay, now on to the reveal, and these have set up overnight, so they've hardened overnight. I left them in their little cradles to make sure that I don't have any flat bottoms, and as you can see, no problems. They did not overexpand, so we don't have any, they're not taking on any additional moisture. Everything looks nice and smooth, no issues whatsoever. They're not losing any of the bath bomb powder, so they're not crumbling. They're not at all, in danger of breaking. They're very, very solid. This is a very important thing for me, the crumbling bit, because having a soap shop where people are coming and picking up the bath bombs, and they get dropped a lot, as you would imagine. And so they have to survive a drop test, no matter what. And so having a nice firm bomb like that and doing the drop test, but making sure that nothing's crumbling, always a very important thing, for sure. Now, for these particular bath bombs, because again, we will be testing all of them at the end of this, I am just going to draw a heart on this so we know that this is the bath bomb that we use the arrowroot for, so we can see the differences with the fizz. We can see if the fizz is prolonged. We can see all of the things with all of it. We'll know that that's the one that, we're doing. So there's that. And so this is another way to use some dry ingredients to help control your humidity, as well as the longevity of the fizz and all the things. And there it is, some absolutely gorgeous bath bombs. They are so smooth and perfect on the outside. They are all rock hard. They survive the drop test like nobody's business. And yeah, they're super gorgeous because you don't know that inside you're going to have this nice little color surprise when all those cute little things come out. So that's super fun. The addition of the arrowroot powder is going to prolong the fizz, essentially because there's more stuff, there's more dry stuff in the batch to slow the baking soda, citric acid, water's, ability to get to each other and create fizzy liftoff. So you will get a longer fizz if you incorporate something like an arrowroot. Other options for that would be, cornstarch. That's also a good option, as well as kaolin clay, also a really good one. Anything that's going to be too heavy of a clay, though, I don't recommend. Kaolin is very lightweight and it is good for skin softening, so it's going to be a benefit, much like arrowroot and cornstarch to that. But if you start getting into the heavier clays, so like your red clays or your bentonites or things like that, things get a little bit weird. So I don't really recommend using too many clays when it comes to bath bombs, but you can use some of the lighter weight ones for sure. As far as making a bomb more impactful, like explode bigger, faster, more violent of a fizz, you're going to be playing with the citric acid ratios. And that is, what I said in the video with the color embeds. That's one of the reasons why people really like using the firm embeds inside of their bath bombs, because they can essentially change the ratios of the baking soda and the citric acid. So instead of the 2 parts baking soda, 1 part citric acid, do a 1-to-1 ratio, or do a 2 parts to 1.5 of citric acid. You get it, to make it more explosive, essentially. And with that, within the core of the bomb itself, that will actually help the bomb float too. So there's an added bonus. Do keep in mind, though, that Lush has a patent on exactly what I just said. And if you're interested in that, I did a whole ass video on it, so go check that one out for sure. So while it can be done, and while a lot of people do it, it is patented, and that is not something that you should be doing if you are planning on selling. But there's that. Anyway, coming up in the rest of the series, we are going to continue talking about dry ingredients, how they can be incorporated, different wet ingredients as far as the oils and butters that can be put in, and also wet and dry ingredients to create foam or fizz or all of the cool stuff that you want your bath bombs to do for, insert reasons. So if you're interested in that, like, subscribe, comment, do the things. Sudsers, thank you for liking and subscribing and commenting and doing the things. You are all amazing, and I appreciate every single one of you. I am out of here. But I will be right back for the next video in this series of bath bomb back to basics soapy fun. Bye.